Welcome to the Good Design is Good Business series. My name is Roger Snook, Worldwide Enablement Leader for Mobile SOA and Design. And you can find me on LinkedIn, SlideShare, where this content has already been posted, as well as DeveloperWorks. We will upload a recording of this session after we conclude. And, of course, we'll open the lines at the end of the session for questions and answers for today. If you don't like being recorded or object to being recorded in that fashion, please hang up now. Otherwise, welcome. Today, I am very excited to have our featured speaker, Mr. Steve Arnold, out of the United Kingdom, a technical consultant at IBM and a longtime colleague, user of Rational Software Architect, DeveloperWorks accomplished author, and our presenter for today's topic on integrating enterprise and software architectures, also part of a series that we're talking about, Rational Software Architect. So with that, Steve, I'll pass the baton over to you. Welcome, and thanks again for presenting today.
Cool. Thank you, Roger, and and welcome to everybody. So, yeah, so as Roger says, I'm a technical consultant, and I work for Rational in the UK and have done for a good many years now. This presentation is really the outcome of a piece of work I did with a colleague of mine called Jazz Atwell, really around looking at how we might sort of start to integrate sort of software architectures and designs with a higher level kind of enterprise architecture. And should be a reasonably short presentation today. I'd have thought half an hour, 45 minutes or so. But really the intent is just to sort of walk through some of that, some of the reasons why you might want to do it, and just talk a little bit about some of the underpinning technology, and kind of just walk through some of the sort of the scenarios that supports. So, yeah, so so from an agenda point of view, absolutely, I'm going to really talk a bit about, well, why would you care? Is there really any value in trying to hook these two things together? And then I think there is, and then we'll go through and talk about, look at the technology you need, how do you set it up, and ultimately what you can do with it. So, I guess there's a couple of things here really, and one of it comes down to what some of the value of those models and information and linking those kind of things together is. And a lot of it is really around helping people make better decisions. And by helping people make better decisions, there's a good chance they're going to make the right decision, which means that downstream you're going to have less work, less rework, less defects. And it's one of the really good things about just getting a software architecture available so that developers can see it, is so that the developers can make better decisions when they write the code. And particularly I think for software and infrastructure architects, having the enterprise architecture available and readily accessible, so they don't necessarily have to go and search the enterprise architecture repository, but perhaps they can click on some links and get to the information they need to see very rapidly. That can only help them do their job better. That can only help them make better decisions, and ultimately that's going to result in some more efficient development with say less defects, less rework. So what are the kind of things that you might see? So so from or likewise from an enterprise architect point of view, you might start to see a similar thing where you're trying to make some enterprise-wide decisions, but you might need to know some of the detail. And so there's a lot of value in being able to go, how does this perhaps really work? What's the really what does the system underpinning this high-level blob I've got in my enterprise architecture? What does that really look like, and how does it really behave? You might want to understand how is it really deployed, or what middleware does it use? And so from an enterprise architect's point of view, there may be things that aren't in the enterprise architecture that are still useful occasionally for you to know. And so being able to drive down into those more detailed architectures and designs, again, can help you make better decisions. If you're thinking perhaps about, I don't know, obsoleting an application or a piece of middleware or something, you might actually want to go in and see how that thing is used in those underpinning systems. And then likewise from a professional, from a software architect or an infrastructure architect point of view, there's a few things there, which is, understanding the business context, absolutely. You might have things like standards inside your enterprise architecture that you want those people to go and look at, and if they're going to support and follow those standards, perhaps link to. You might want to, allow people, apologies for the noise, is that it's fine. You might want to allow people to do things like, understand, well, maybe I've got some, standard patterns in my enterprise architecture, and they might be linked down to other implementations. So can I go into my enterprise architecture and use that as a way of finding out other places where people have done things? You might want to also understand where perhaps, where certain aspects of your enterprise architecture aren't being fulfilled, or, from a future point of view, if you've got a future plan, how might, how does that map onto the existing state, and are there any gaps? So again, you might also want to analyze, the relationships between your enterprise and more detailed designs for, and do some kind of gap analysis and traceability analysis. So, I think there's potential value, for a lot of organisations in starting to link these things together, especially because sometimes the enterprise architecture is, can be viewed as, it can be, quite, sometimes a little bit, away from the reality, and actually this gives you a way of starting to really base an enterprise architecture in the reality of the systems that are really out there supporting it. So, ultimately, it's a positive thing. I think it can, absolutely, it can help you probably produce better software. It's more compliant with where you want to go. Organisationally, by people being able to see what the future trends are, and what the future directions are for an organisation. Again, it allows people to make better decisions. I mean that you're not going to have to rip something out, a few months after you've written it, perhaps. So, yes, very positive thing to be able to do, but I guess how would we do it? So really, there's a set of underpinning technologies from IBM. So the first is System Architect, which I guess hopefully you may be familiar with if you're on the call. So the first is System Architect, which is our enterprise architecture tool and repository, and that's really the best description, I think, for System Architect often is that it's something of everything. So it allows you to a reasonable level, it allows you to model lots and lots of different kinds of things. So you can model data and business processes and applications, and obviously support things like TOGAF, and you can start to look at and all kinds of aspects of your enterprise. And ultimately, you can start to how all those things are interrelated to each other, and then through these integrations, actually would also be able to then allow you to say, well, I've got a blob in my enterprise architecture which represents a system, and actually allow you to link down and trace that link down to the actual real implementation of it. So that's the system architect piece, the high level aspect. So the second component, which really supports the software architecture and the infrastructure architecture piece, is Rational Software Architect, which is the original sort of software design tool IBM Rational had. So that is really about taking, well, the software architecture core piece is really around allowing you to do detailed software design, supporting UML 2.2 and getting into the details of how functionally how an application might fit together and how it supports the requirements. And then there's if you look over here on the left-hand side, there's also a set of extensions around deployment planning, and those deployment planning extensions are basically allowing you to describe physical topologies, so at various levels of abstraction. So it supports the concepts of logical, physical, and kind of almost implementation level topologies for machines. So really allowing an infrastructure architect to start to describe the detailed infrastructure topologies that would support a system. So again, at an enterprise level, you might just have a very, very high level view. The getting down into the deployment planning piece is really all about talking about perhaps what a very detailed level, what versions of what middleware you're running and patch levels and all that kind of thing, or it can be more abstract than that. And then the other component here is also Design Manager, which is the Jazz-based server-side component for RSA, which actually enables all of the kind of the sort of Jazz-based integrations, and I'm going to come to that. So those are the kind of two core kind of technologies. However, what we then get into is like, well, how do we start to integrate the data inside those two things? And again, it comes back to this, the current rational view that, well, actually the data should live, rather than trying to create one big repository that does everything or one big tool that does everything, actually different architects, actually have needs for different tools, and so they should have their own tool and they should manage their data in their own tool. However, what we also want to support is the ability to link data inside those different tools together. So basically trying to, and it's something that we've been obviously pushing on the industry, or pushing on the industry, but we've been pushing with the industry for a good 2 years now, which is really around trying to standardize those interfaces, or standardize a set of interfaces and standardize a way of integrating data between different tools. And that integration piece, it's built into the Jazz architecture, and it basically means that every aspect in your architecture, whether it's a detailed architecture in Software Architect, whether it's a topology element in deployment planning, or whether it's it's a architectural building block in System Architect. Everything's a resource. It can all be accessed through the web, and then we start to build on these OSLC standard interfaces to enable the different applications to talk to each other, to discover the various artifacts, and to be able to link to them. So if you've not come across, this kind of leads us down to the Open Services for Lifecycle Collaboration piece, which is really a set of industry standard interfaces, community-driven, which is all around standardizing the interfaces to the various tools. And so you end up with a couple of, in this particular space, there's a couple of interfaces that are relevant. So there's a requirements interface and there's a architecture management interface. And both System Architect and Software Architect both implement and provide both of those interfaces. So effectively, you can say that System Architect, so your enterprise architecture is going to provide requirements on your software architecture, and you can wire the two tools together in order to do that, and to be able to link elements from those two tools together. And so this provides a huge amount of flexibility, and obviously once you've got those links in place, you can navigate them very quickly, and it's that in-context navigation which really provides a lot of the power and a lot of the usefulness, because it means that as a practitioner, as I come along, I can very quickly click on a link and get to the information that's relevant to me, rather than having to go and find another tool, open it, search it, and find something, but I'm not totally sure whether or not that thing is really the thing I should be looking at. So, the ability to quickly click on a link, or to visualize that link and then to navigate to it is actually quite powerful. And the OSLC integrations just make the setting up of those links and the navigation of them particularly easy and simple. So, how do we actually? What does the actual integration look like, and kind of how does that really work? So, generally speaking, what you end up with when you start to set up these OSLC integrations is there's really two levels. At the bottom level, you basically have to connect the two server repositories together and provide a level of authentication between them so that they can communicate with each other. So that's all about, that uses a standard called OAuth for the authentication. And in this particular case, it's you need two system architect components. So you need the main system architect repository, and then you also need system architect XT, which is a sort of a lightweight web-based view of system architect. And effectively what you do is you take the main repository and the system architect client itself, or the main repository, and you link that through to the design manager repository. So that's the design manager here is the sort of the server side piece of software architect. And so that allows then anyone using system architect to effectively query design manager to find to find either UML elements or to find topology elements, and to be able to click on a link and navigate very quickly down to design manager. And then, because all the OSLC stuff is obviously web-based, actually we need to use system architect's web-based components. So it's SAXT, which actually provides the OSLC interfaces. So design manager actually connects into SAXT at a kind of at a sort of server-based level. And so once you've basically set up those two integrations, so you go into system architect and you make it friends with design manager, and likewise you go into design manager and make it friends with system architect. What you can then do is you then start to link at a project level. So you say that a particular encyclopedia in system architect is linked to a particular project area inside design manager, and that can be a many-to-many link. So it will be quite common, I think, to have a single encyclopedia on system architect that's potentially linked to many projects in design manager, because you're going to expect at an enterprise level I'm going to have I'm going to be talking about all my high-level systems, and perhaps I'm going to have a whole series of architectural building blocks. And I tend to be thinking about at that level, and each of those architectural building blocks is potentially going to link down into its own project area inside design manager, where it's got its own detailed design. And so, actually setting up the integration is a fairly straightforward and painless exercise. There's a few set of screens that you need to click through, and it's documented in the help, and there's also a paper that Jazz and I wrote which kind of goes through the steps. So once you've got those things set up, then you get down to kind of what you can do with it, really. And as and really what we're going to do now, and it's really just step through a few of the different roles, and just talk about what you can do, how you go about doing it, and kind of get the broad idea of the integration. So as an enterprise architect, there's really kind of three things that I can do. I can set up links, I can follow links, and then I can report on links in a couple of ways. I can take you through a few screenshots for this. On the left-hand side, we've got System Architect, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose one of my elements in System Architect. In this case, you see the reservation system is selected, and from there I can right-click on that, and I can basically create a link. And when I choose to create that link, I basically get presented with a dialog box, which is effectively allowing me to choose and search for models or model elements from Design Manager. So the actual contents of that box are actually, or the way OSLC works is that actually the contents of that box are provided by the Design Manager server itself. So when we go to create that link, what we're seeing here is a bit of the Design Manager user interface, allowing you to to start to search for the thing that you want to look for. So you can see there are things up there like being able to choose for things like snapshots, which is something the Design Manager supports. So I can go and look at a particular standard version of thing, or snapshotted version of something at a point in time, or I can search the current the current latest elements. So again, just type something in there. I can and there's a set of different ways we can search inside RSA Design Manager, but that will basically pull me back to the element that I want to see, and I can just hit OK, and that's going to go through and create the link for me. When once that link's created, then one of the things that we start to see is also things like the rich hovers. Sorry, get to the next screenshot. So just like all of the rest of the JAS platform, once you've got a link there, I can hover over the link and basically I can get a summary of the information. So again, with Software Architect, if it's just an element that I'm related to, I'll just see some basic information about that element. If I'm actually linking to a diagram, which I'm more than able to do, then I can also, if I click on the details link there, I can actually start to, I'll actually see the diagram rendered in the rich hover for me. So I don't even necessarily need to follow the link into the underlying system. I can actually just see the details, and and that may be enough information for me. So we've got rich hover from the system architect side. Okay. This is a built slide and it hasn't built. That's fine. So really, there are kind of two different ways of actually exploring the information that you've got. What you're seeing on the top here is basically a system architect explorer diagram. So this is really exploring the relationships between things in your enterprise architecture. And what this screenshot is trying to show you is the fact that through this diagram, we not only pull back, the elements that are inside the system architect repository, it also pulls back any of the link or a representation of any of the linked elements as well. So here, the top block in the left-hand corner is the reservation system as known and understood by system architect, but the reservation system below it is actually a representation of the element inside Software Architect. And so from there, I can click on it, see the rich hover. I can click through, and I can see the more detailed design for that. So this could be linking off to a use case diagram. It could be linking off to some kind of architectural context diagram, that sat inside RSA. It could be linking off to a sketch. That basically started to provide, the next level down of information about the reservation system itself. And so because, you can link any model element to any model element, certainly probably linking through to a diagram, probably quite a sensible thing to do. So the thing that you can't quite see, which is underneath, is actually is basically a report. So the other thing that you can start to do is pull back a report about which model elements inside your enterprise architecture have associated relationships down into your software architecture, into your infrastructure designs. So again, this allows you to basically pull up a report and understand where there are gaps, and potentially decide whether or not you're going to fix those gaps or not. So again, it's a very quick way for trying to understand, what the status is of your traceability. So from an enterprise architect's point of view, actually having these links available means I can actually really quickly get to the detailed design information, and ultimately that helps me be more informed, and actually ultimately helps me make better decisions potentially around sort of longer term strategic choices that I'm trying to make. And it gets over the fact that actually I know that the designs themselves might be scattered through stored on various configuration management systems. It could be pictures of the designs could be scattered through SharePoint. This allows me to go to one single repository where all the designs live, and be able to get to the right elements. So going the other way, as a software or infrastructure architect, again, we've got some pretty similar capabilities. So as a software architect or as an infrastructure architect, what I'm going to do is I'm going to I'm going to be in Design Manager, which is the screenshot right on the left-hand side. I'm then going to say that I want to add a link. And what that then does is it then provides me with a picker, again, for choosing a link, but that picker this time is going to be provided by System Architect. And so you see when we come to that top level screen there, that I've chosen to link to an element in System Architect, and that this selecting the model element, it looks different, but that's because it's coming from a different tool. So it's the different tools can basically provide their own pickers to so that it's so that you're choosing an appropriate thing, and we don't enforce there's a certain minimum kind of thing, certain minimum elements or something that need to be chosen. So this is it's a good thing. I can go in here, I can choose I want to search across a definition or a diagram. I can then type in name or search for something, select it, and then say, right, that's the thing that I want to link to, and hit OK, and quickly set that link up with really just a couple of clicks. And then likewise from Design Manager, I'm going to get my rich hot. If I come across something that's got a link, I can see some summary information about that, which is being supplied by System Architect, and then effectively I can click a link and I can jump across and I can start to see the detail of that thing, in the web, using System Architect XT. So again, this means as a software architect, I don't need to have System Architect installed in order to consume the enterprise architecture. I can very quickly follow a link. I can see the information I need to see in the web. I could potentially see any other related information from that point, and again, that would help me make better decisions as a software designer. And then the final piece is it's a little slightly old diagram. It just changed a little bit when I went to version 4, the format, but the idea is the same, which is that I can then I can visualize the links and the relationships inside Software Architect, very much the same way that I can do in System Architect, quite different technology. But basically, I can take my reservation system, and you can see here that there's a set of relationships. So I can see things like the associated components and diagrams and things. But the red box on the right-hand side, that is that's a link off to an external resource. That's a link off to the System Architect definition of what the reservation system is all about. So again, very quickly, I can rich hover over that, I can click on the link, and that will jump me over to the enterprise architecture view of what that system is all about. And again, and its relationships, and it might be that there might also be links in there to what the plans are for that system over time as well, so that again, I can make some good decisions about it. And so really, that's what the crux of this session. There's some very, very simple technology in there to allow you to link those things together. For both sets of practitioners, either enterprise architectures or sort of system or infrastructure architects, it allows them to very quickly get to either the context of what it is they're doing or the detail of what it is that they're doing. And basically there's some sets of reasonably capable querying in terms of graphically viewing things and also reporting on the gaps and the existing of those relationships, so that you can also start to build up and improve that body of knowledge over time. And that's it really. So there's a set of hopefully useful links at the end of this, which is really around just pointing at the other sort of various products we talked about today at a high level. There's also just a link off to the actual article, which kind of walks through this in the process of setting this up in more depth, and walks you through how to actually exercise the various integrations. But from my point of view, that was kind of that was the end of the presentation. But I'm happy